Phil.
Hello, Julie. Thank you for agreeing to speaking with us today. Can I ask you why you think international regulatory cooperation is important today?
Well, I would actually say that international regulatory cooperation isn't actually a new thing. It's been, countries have been doing it for a very long time, and it's been important for a long time, but I don't think people have thought about it particularly. And I think that with the increased use of the digital e-commerce, the digital economy, with the growth of emerging tech as well, which requires perhaps a common approach, things like problems like COVID and climate change, which can't be solved by one country. I think that's exacerbated the need for us to focus on it. And so, in a sense, perhaps the focus that's coalescing around IRC is a long time coming.
Yes, it's true. Thanks. And how about, in your experience, how has New Zealand approached IRC, and what do you see as the key challenges still to make a more effective use of it?
New Zealand, I think, has been, like most other countries, engaged in forms of IRC. But what I think we have done is, because we've done a lot of bilateral regulatory cooperation with Australia, and at a point in the mid-2000s, we actually, slightly later, we decided to capture some of what we'd learnt from that engagement, and there was a joint paper produced between Australia and New Zealand. And out of that, I think we've trying to kind of capture and share some of that practical experience, both internally within New Zealand and making it available to others. We have also got some hooks around IRC in some of our core documents in our government regulatory management strategy, and we have government expectations for good regulatory practice. There are some hooks in there. We also have allocated some, I guess, responsibility for promoting IRC within the system. So my organisation, the Ministry for Business, Innovation and Employment, is the notional lead for promoting this within New Zealand, but having to work with Treasury, our central oversight body, I guess, in OECD parlance. So we've got those hooks. I think the challenge that we have is there are parts of our system and parts of our different regulatory systems that are quite good at thinking about the international component of their work and engaging with the international regulatory cooperation issues, but it's not spread across everything. I still hear people talking about, well, I'm only really interested in the domestic situation, and we need, I think, to focus on moving our people, both the regulatory design and implementation, so our policy people and our regulators, to stop thinking of this as sort of an add-on or something that they'll do if they have time, or that it's a luxury. It needs to be far more integral to their work. I mean, I think I've previously used the phrase, it needs to become part of their DNA. So I think that means not just sharing our practical experience, we really have to engage with them and get them to understand why this is important and why it's not optional that they think about these things. I think that's the biggest challenge that we face, and the thing we need to do to really capitalize on and ensure that we are delivering the policy objectives of our regulation effectively for the New Zealand public.
Right, and on that, well, how do you think the OECD best practice principles on international regulatory cooperation, which you obviously also helped to elaborate as part of the RPC Regulatory Policy Committee, how do you think these can help New Zealand?
I think the value of the best practice principles, I think, leverage the OECD brand. It has credibility, it's got profile, and that alone will be helpful for us in getting people to take this issue seriously. You know, having the best practice principles with the, you know, from the OECD of itself will make it easier to engage with, you know, our government, our ministers, but also senior officials or senior leaders and agencies right down the track. So I think the existence of these from the OECD is important, but the content as well, because I think it would be fair to say that it's still early days in terms of what good really looks like for international regulatory cooperation. Even though it's been an issue for a long time, I don't think anybody has really cracked how to do this perfectly. But the best practice principles, I think, give us a useful blueprint that we can use as a reference point as we look to improve our practice. And I think that's the value. It's a collection of, you know, thinking and experience distilled in a way that's actually quite you know, quite approachable and will be a really useful tool for us to kind of point to say, well, this should be helping to guide how we move forward. So I think that'd be a really useful tool for us.
Thank you very much, Julie, and well, have a nice day.
Thank you.